Somewhere in the world, right now, a psychopath is having dinner with friends. They're laughing, smiling, telling stories, and nobody around them has any idea who they really are. When most people hear the word psychopath, they imagine a monster, a serial killer, a criminal, someone easy to spot. But the truth is far more disturbing, because the most dangerous psychopaths don't hide in dark alleys. They hide in plain sight. They sit in meetings. They build relationships. They gain trust, and some of them become remarkably successful. So how does a psychopath really think? To answer that question, we first need to understand one simple fact. A psychopath doesn't experience the world the same way you do. Imagine that every emotion you feel suddenly becomes quieter. Guilt, empathy, fear, regret. Not completely gone, just weaker, much weaker. For most people, emotions act like an internal compass. They influence decisions. They create connections. They stop us from hurting others. But many individuals with strong psychopathic traits appear to process these emotional signals differently. Researchers have found that psychopaths often show reduced emotional responses in situations that would strongly affect most people. In simple terms, they may understand what you feel, but they don't necessarily feel it with you, and that changes everything. When you meet someone new, your brain immediately starts reading them. Are they friendly? Can they be trusted? Do they seem nervous, confident, honest? Most people naturally focus on emotions, but a psychopath may be looking at the same person through a completely different lens. Instead of asking, "How do they feel?" they may be asking, "What can this person do for me? How useful are they? How much influence do they have? Can they help me get what I want? Can they be controlled? Can they be manipulated?" This doesn't mean every psychopath consciously plans to use every person they meet. Reality is far more complex than that. But many people with strong psychopathic traits tend to view relationships in a much more transactional way. Where most people see friendship, they may see opportunity. Where most people see trust, they may see vulnerability. And where most people see emotional connection, they may see leverage. This difference is one of the reasons psychopaths can sometimes become highly effective manipulators. Because manipulation requires emotional distance. And emotional distance is something many psychopaths naturally possess. Imagine playing a game of chess. Every move is calculated. Every piece has a purpose. Every decision serves a goal. Now imagine applying that same mindset to people, to relationships, to conversations, to everyday life. For many psychopaths, human interaction can feel less emotional and more strategic, less about connection and more about outcomes. That doesn't make them evil, but it does make them fundamentally different. And once you understand that, their behavior starts to make a lot more sense. Now imagine lying to someone you care about, a close friend, a partner, a family member. Most people would feel something afterwards, maybe immediately, maybe later that night. But eventually, guilt arrives. It's one of the most powerful emotions humans experience. Guilt reminds us when we've crossed a line. It pushes us to apologize, to make things right, to repair relationships. Without guilt, society would look very different. But for many psychopaths, guilt operates very differently, or in some cases, barely at all. Researchers have found that psychopathic individuals often show significantly lower emotional responses to actions that would deeply disturb most people. Imagine being able to betray someone and feeling almost nothing afterwards. No sleepless nights, no constant replaying of the situation, no emotional punishment, just moving on. For most people, that sounds impossible, but for a psychopath, it can feel completely natural. And that's what makes psychopathy so difficult for others to understand, because we instinctively assume everyone feels what we feel, that everyone experiences regret, that everyone struggles with shame. But not everyone does. A psychopath may understand that an action hurt someone. They may recognize the consequences. But understanding pain is very different from feeling it, and that difference changes everything. Because when guilt disappears, many of the emotional barriers that stop ordinary people from harming others disappear with it. Not because psychopaths are constantly looking to hurt people, but because the emotional brakes that slow most of us down simply aren't as strong. And once those brakes are gone, the way you make decisions changes completely. Here's where things become truly fascinating. Most people assume a psychopath would be easy to recognize. Cold eyes, strange behavior, obvious warning signs, someone who immediately makes you uncomfortable. But reality is often far more complicated. In fact, some psychopaths can be remarkably charming, confident, charismatic, even likable. They know how to make a strong first impression. They know how to say the right thing, how to appear trustworthy, how to gain confidence quickly. And that's exactly why they can be so difficult to identify, because the stereotype most people have in their heads simply doesn't match reality. Many psychopaths don't look dangerous. They look successful. They look intelligent. They look normal. Some studies have even suggested that psychopathic traits can sometimes help people climb social hierarchies, especially in highly competitive environments. Not because psychopathy guarantees success, but because confidence, risk-taking, and emotional detachment can occasionally provide advantages. This is what psychologists sometimes call the mask, a carefully crafted image presented to the world, an identity designed to appear completely ordinary, and sometimes completely trustworthy, which raises a disturbing possibility. What if the people we fear most aren't the ones who look dangerous? What if they're the ones who seem perfectly normal? The most disturbing thing about psychopathy isn't violence, it isn't crime, and it isn't manipulation, at least not entirely. The most disturbing thing is how normal it can appear, because many psychopaths don't stand out. They don't wear a warning sign, they don't announce themselves, they blend in, they sit next to us at work, they stand behind us in line, they join our social circles, they become friends, partners, colleagues, and sometimes leaders. That's what makes psychopathy so fascinating and so unsettling. We like to believe that everyone experiences the world the same way we do, that everyone feels guilt, that everyone feels empathy, that everyone struggles with regret. But psychopathy reminds us that this isn't always true. Two people can smile the same way, speak the same way, live similar lives, and yet experience reality in completely different ways. One may be guided by empathy, the other by calculation. One may feel emotional pain deeply, the other may barely feel it at all. And from the outside, you might never know the difference. Maybe that's why psychopathy continues to fascinate researchers around the world, because it challenges one of our deepest assumptions, the belief that everyone sees the world through the same emotional lens. But they don't, and perhaps they never have. So the next time you hear the word psychopath, don't picture a monster hiding in the shadows. Picture someone who looks completely ordinary, someone you might pass on the street, someone you might work with, someone you might already know. Because the most dangerous minds rarely announce themselves. They hide behind confidence, behind charm, behind success, and sometimes they hide in plain sight. Every mind has a hidden side, hidden mind.